Justine, this is bad for the Conservatives. This has been a bad night. It looks set to be a bad day. This is a bad election.
I think Aubrey's just summed it up very well, actually. And we've got to remember that last year, I'm sat in London, it was a disastrous time for Conservatives in the capital city. We lost Wandsworth, a council that we'd held for literally 40 years. And I think these results follow on from that. Now, arguably, you can say that what's happened over the last 12 months, means it could have been even worse. But I think it's hard to dress these up for the party beyond being what looks to be, so we said we've got a long way to go, a really bad set of results. But perhaps, behind the rhetoric of the last few days, results that probably many in the party were expecting.
The expectation, I suppose, doesn't negate the blow that this is. And actually, surely there are questions, as being reported in the Times this morning, as to Rishi Sunak's ability here to turn this around in time for a general election as far as Conservatives are concerned. The Times reports the Tory right is plotting to take back control after local election drubbing. He's facing a backlash from Boris Johnson supporters and the Tory right. Is Rishi Sunak the right leader to turn this around in time for a general election, as far as you're concerned?
I certainly don't expect that most Conservatives will be looking to have yet another leadership contest between now and the next election. And I think the reality is both these wings of the Conservative Party now have to come together. Frankly, the last thing that the Conservatives need is to look like they're having a debate with themselves about these election results. What they need to get on and do is make sure they're actually delivering on some of the promises, not least the original one that Boris Johnson won a landslide on, which is to deliver levelling up. And I think, in a sense, in places like Stoke, the big challenge for the Conservatives is are people in Stoke actually now saying they think Labour are going to be able to do a better job of delivering levelling up than the Conservatives? And for me, we're going to come on and talk about another initiative of the government on getting prisoners into work. That could have been a small but important part of a much bigger levelling up agenda had we really managed to get to grips with that.
Yeah. So it's about, can he do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke, I suppose, at the end of the thing. What would you say, then, to these Tory rebels, to the Conservative Democratic Organisation, who are going to hold a conference in Bournemouth on May the 13th? Supporters of Johnson Boris Johnson are going to be there, Priti Patel's going to be there. What would you say to them?
I'd say divided parties lose elections, and we might have got quite used to winning elections in the recent past, but I stood as a candidate back in 2003, that's when I became the Conservative candidate in Putney. We won in 2005 when we were still losing. It's not fun losing elections, and it's not fun being in opposition, as I spent my first term as an MP. So I think it's up to the National Party to show some real leadership, actually, and to come together. There's lots of fantastic councillors who are losing their seats as we speak, because in the wider country, there's a real frustration with a Conservative government that clearly not enough people feel are delivering on the ground for them. As Aubrey said, though, I don't think there's a massive groundswell of enthusiasm for Labour, but I think, in a sense, voters perhaps just thought this is a good chance to send a message to the governing party, and they don't need to particularly worry about exactly who they want to run Britain until next year's election.